Okay, welcome back everyone. It is 2 o'clock. Hope you've had a nice lunch break and you're ready to crack on with the afternoon. We have got 2 more talks this afternoon, so we should be finishing at about 3:15, 3:30. But to start off with, we have got Niamh, who is going to be talking about expectations versus reality of autism, and she's going to talk about her own experiences as an autistic young person who's currently attending university. So I will hand over to you, Niamh.
Hiya, thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, so as Rebecca said, my name's Niamh, and yeah, I'm going to be talking a bit about expectations and stuff. Just to note that I may refer to the terms like ASD, person with autism, someone being on the spectrum, and autistic. I know everyone likes different terms, doesn't like different terms, so just to say that. And then when referring to the non-autistic population, I'll use the term neurotypical. And also I have a cold, which is why my voice is very mucked up at the minute. So please excuse that. Anyway, so I will be talking a bit about me, autism acceptance and why I think that's important, and education, specifically university. So a bit about me. I grew up in Sutton and went to St. Philomena's, and I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 17. Yeah, 17. And when I'm at home, I work locally with individuals with learning disabilities and or autism, and I absolutely love it. I'm currently reading a psychology with a professional placement year, and I'm taking an extended module in British Sign Language and Deaf Culture. So a bit more about the things I like, just to get to know me. I love Harry Potter. I'm Harry Potter mad. And could talk about it for ages. And the same with musicals. I think I absolutely do my family's head in, talking about musicals the whole time. And then I really like squishies. This is Felix, he's on the screen. He's called Felix Fighting Fox. He's been through some wars, as you can see. His ear was torn off. It wasn't by me, but it was torn off. And I think it's great. It's a great conversation starter as well. But yeah, here's Felix. And I love dogs. These are my 2 dogs. This one is Ruby and this one is Lucy. And I miss them so much. And yeah, some of my dislikes are clocks ticking. It's really difficult to explain to people why I don't like clocks ticking, and people are like, I can't hear it, what you're on about, you cannot hear that, that can't be bothering you, but it's just that really minute noise in the background that can just send me into disarray. And the same with everyone talking at once, and you have absolutely no idea where to look. You're just like, whoa, people everywhere. And I think it's probably quite common with people on the autistic spectrum, change of plans, any kind of change to my schedule, I can't cope. And another thing is working out whether someone is using a question or a statement. And I think we're all guilty of doing this. I do this a lot, but it's when someone says something like, oh, I'm wondering if you feel this way. It's like, that's cool, I'm wondering too. I don't know how to respond to that. So that's led to a few difficult situations, especially when all of this happens at once or in quick succession. Then it can lead to a meltdown or a shutdown, which is not pleasant. But yeah, and onto autism acceptance. When I found out that I had been given this opportunity to give this presentation, I spoke to my mum, hi mum, about what she thought I should talk about. Her recommendation was this quote, along with the message that we're all different. No two neurotypicals are the same, and in the same way, no two autistic people are the same. Like when I meet a neurotypical, I'm not going to say, oh, my brother's neurotypical, so you're going to have this characteristic, and this characteristic. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So why would you do that with someone with autism? That's why I really like this quote. But after I was assessed for autism, my mum asked me if I really wanted to know whether or not I had it. She asked me what would be the same and what would be different. And I said that everything would be the same, but that I would have more knowledge of myself and why I felt like I didn't quite fit in. And I knew that my view of myself would stay the same, but I don't think I really prepared myself for how people would view me and how that could change, because it suddenly felt as though, even though I knew I was autistic, that I didn't fit into people's idea of what autism looked like. And so I got into the habit of avoiding telling people, because they would end up saying stuff like, oh, you don't look autistic, or you're not that autistic, because I know someone else who is very autistic, and it's just kind of really undermines the diagnosis. But yeah. And so this left me feeling as though I didn't quite fit in anywhere, and that I'm just here in the middle with autistic people on the left and neurotypical people on the right. And I was 17, on the brink of adulthood, completely in limbo between child and adult services, and I felt as though I really didn't fit in anywhere. And I wish I could say that that feeling disappeared, but it didn't. It's still in the background, but it's okay. I have my close friends who know me really well, and my family, my dogs, and that's all I need. But the notion of not fitting in is the main reason that I'm really, really happy that the National Autistic Society decided to change the name of World Autism Awareness Week to World Autism Acceptance Week, because we shouldn't have to spend our lives on the outside looking in. More should be done so that we can be a part of society, which made me think of a quote from a musical. Said earlier on, love musicals. There's this musical called Dear Evan Hansen, which is about a boy with severe anxiety, and he sings about how he's on the outside always looking in, and it just made me think of that. But I get that for a lot of people, this change from awareness to acceptance might seem like really small and insignificant, but it gives me a hope that we can build a world where we all fit in, so that my feeling that I won't fit in will just be a feeling and it's not the reality. It's like these quotes here: there are no extra pieces in the universe. Everyone is here because he or she has a place to fill, and every piece must fit itself into the big jigsaw puzzle. And nobody fits everywhere, but everyone fits in somewhere. And whatever makes you different, that's exactly who you're here to be, not someone that fits with everyone else. And with that, we'll have acceptance. And so the next part is going to be about my journey to university, which was quite long. The statistics with university are quite sad, really. 2.4% of all UK university students identify as autistic. Less than 40% of autistic students complete their degree. Autistic students are 10 times more likely than their neurotypical peers to drop out, which means that only 1.08% of all university graduates are autistic. And I think that's absolutely shocking. If you think that at least 1 in 100 people is diagnosed as autism, and that a large proportion of those people could go to university, then why is there such a high dropout rate? It's really, really scary to think about. Oh, I've changed the banner. But I knew that I wanted to go to university from the age of about 6. So over 10 years before I was diagnosed. I didn't really know what university was, but there's a big age gap between myself and my siblings. So I was like, yeah, they're going to university, I'm going to university. And my parents weren't pushy in the slightest, but it was always kind of viewed as inevitable. But sometimes I think about, if I was diagnosed, I don't know, maybe about 6, would I still go to university? Would I still have the same journey that I've had? And yeah, would I have dropped out? It's all all plays in your mind. Here are some autistic people who went to university. Temple Brandon, I think we all know Temple. She is an animal behaviourist who got a bachelor's degree in human psychology from a university in America, and then a master's degree in animal science and a doctoral degree in animal science. And next we have Wentworth Miller, who is known for his role in Prison Break. He got a bachelor's degree in English from Princeton. And Steve Silberman, who is an author best known for his 2015 book, Neurotribes, good book. He got his bachelor's degree in psychology in America and a master's degree in English literature. So there are some inspirations. And in the lead up to my going to university, I was absolutely petrified and found that there was so much information for autistic people transitioning from primary to secondary school to post-16, and then you look for post-16 to university resources and there's not much. You just kind of have to hope that your school can support you and that the university you're going to can support you. But it makes it way too easy to just get lost. In my mind, getting into university was the easier part, but everything that would come after seemed absolutely impossible. I could imagine my future up until A-level results day, and then after that I could just see a cliff, which was quite scary. But my biggest worries were change. The challenges were being away from home. The longest I'd been away from home was 2 weeks, and that was in Ireland because I'm Irish, and so I was with family, so it doesn't really count. But going to university, I'd be in a new place, completely new people, and I'd be fending for myself, which is very scary. And I'd be away from school, away from the teachers that I'd known for years. I'm sure they're very happy to get rid of me, but that was beside the point. And I knew that when I visited, it would be completely different and it wouldn't be the same as being there every day. And that really scared me. But how I overcame these challenges is that I knew that change and adjusting to change was going to be a massive issue for me. So I tried to prepare for it as best as I could. and I discussed the transition with my sixth form team. And I was really fortunate that the head of sixth form and the head teacher helped me every single step of the way, because they knew what a challenge transitioning was going to be for me. And they also knew and understood how much I wanted to go to university. And the head of sixth form was brilliant. He even had a cup of tea with me a week before I went to university, which really helped me to see that, okay, school's finished, I can put that to one side, and university is next. That's where I'm going now. And I love a good spreadsheet. So I made a massive big spreadsheet of all the universities that I was considering. I have put all the information that I could possibly find about them into the spreadsheet. And that was like distance in miles, time it would take to get there by car, time by train, and what grades they'd want and what support they offered. And then I created like a scoring system. And I'm pretty sure my mum thought I was crazy for doing that, but it helped. And we tried to visit the universities before accepting my offer, which was a bit difficult because it was COVID, but I think we went to 2 or 3, which was really helpful. And cooking. I was a bit scared with cooking because I'm hopeless. I'm hopeless with food. I eat food, I just haven't got a clue how to cook it. So myself and my mum made a list of recipes that I was familiar with before I left, and a family friend gave me a uni cookbook, which sets out how much each meal would cost. And it's a really good cookbook, I'd recommend it. But and then at the start of term, I created a weekly meal plan so that I could see what ingredients I would need and that I'd make sure no food would go to waste. And I could reference meals in my head with the cookbooks, and like I no longer use the meal planner, but I know it's there if I get a bit stressed and I can go back to it. And shopping, I hate shopping, absolutely hate it. And at home we shop at Lidl, but a specific Lidl because I don't like the other Lidl. The other Lidl drives me crazy. And so there isn't a Lidl near uni, which I'm not happy about, but there's an Aldi, which is, everyone says they're the same, they're not the same. Aldi is, I'm sorry, Aldi lovers, it's just not as good. And I like specific Lidl products. So going to Aldi with their specific Aldi products was a bit scary. And I found it a bit intimidating getting the bus, going there by myself. But I made sure I had my sunflower lanyard with me every time I went. I put it on and the staff got to know me. Probably thought I was a crazy person coming in freaking out every time, but it was fine. And they were really nice, and they let me go to the self-checkout even though I have a trolley of stuff, and they let me use the self-checkout because I get a bit stressed out using the checkout with the cashier. So that's really nice and really helpful. And I know that's just my issue, but everyone else will have their own issues with shopping and other things, and it's just finding those people who are a bit more supportive, who can help you out. And one thing that every single student hates about uni is having to pay to use the washing machine and tumble dryer. It costs £5 a load. It's like daylight robbery. But I arrived at uni on a Saturday, so I decided to make Saturday the day that I would change my bed sheets, towels, and all of that. And I chucked them into my broken washing basket and dread the day that I have to trek up the hill. It's a massive hill to do my washing. So I decided not to allocate a specific day to my washing because I knew that plans would change and I needed to be flexible. That won't work out for everyone. I know some people would feel much better having a specific day and time, but there was no way I was going to do my laundry during the storm Eunice. I set out to do it on Saturday and the storm came. And I was like, absolutely not, I'm staying inside in my pajamas. And yeah, and the next challenge was meeting new humans. Anyone who knows me, I don't refer to people as people, I refer to them as humans. They're all humans. And I was a bit worried that I would struggle to find people who I'd get along with. Like, what if I didn't find anyone to be friends with? What if I struggled with group work and my flatmates? And I've spent 8 years in high school surrounded by people who knew me and had got used to my quirks, even if they didn't know that I actually had autism. But at uni, I'd have to start from scratch, which on one hand is great because I got a clean slate. But on the other hand, I was worried that I'd have to explain every little thing that's just a bit different, like why I didn't respond to their statement or why I don't always make eye contact. So it was a bit scary starting off. And I was worried about group work because one of my modules has a lot of group work in it. And I keep forgetting everyone's name. So group work has become a nightmare. And my flatmates, I was really lucky. My flatmates are actually lovely. But I have heard some horror stories where people have not got on with their flatmates. And clubbing. Clubbing I was really apprehensive about because, well, it's what uni is known for, really. And it's quite loud and a bit scary. And the beginning of term was impacted a lot by COVID. And that meant that a lot of things are online. And I'm not very fond of doing things online, but you just have to deal with it, I suppose. A bit scary, but it was okay. But it made it really difficult to meet new people because I just spent most of the time in my room joining. And yeah, and so the way I tried to overcome these struggles was I made contact really early on with University Support Service, and I shared like all my relevant information with them. And they actually had an autism orientation weekend, which a lot of universities do for new students. And it gives them a chance to meet other people in a similar situation. And if held in person, can really help them to get to know their way around. And I was fortunate that because of my autism, I could be provided with an ensuite. And the cost of the ensuite was subsidized, so I don't have to share a bathroom with like 5 other people, which would be not enjoyable. And I shared my EHCP with the student support unit so that they could see my needs, and shared all the relevant documentation with them. And once I'd accepted my place in the summer, I joined Facebook groups, which was like for my course, for my halls, and there's a massive one for freshers so that I would get to know some people before I came onto campus. Most of them I never actually met, but it felt quite reassuring that I knew that they were there if I ever wanted to meet them, but I didn't know. And I looked into sports and societies. I'm not sporty at all, but so I looked more into societies. But I realised that one of the best ways to make friends and to meet other people is to meet like-minded people. So if you love Harry Potter like me, I went to see if there was Harry Potter Society, and there was, but it was cancelled, which is really annoying. And then there's some other societies which are quite cool. And at the start of term, I joined the university's dog walking society because I thought that would mean that I'd get to spend a lot of time with dogs and be around people who love dogs as much as I do. for context, I am that person who shouts dog every time they see a dog. Doesn't matter where I am, what I'm doing. If I'm in conversation with someone, I'm just like, dog, run to the dog. Yeah, stranger danger really doesn't come into it. And I went to the dog walking society a couple of times, but I realised it wasn't for me, which was a bit disappointing because I really needed my doggy fix. But then I found an app called Borrow My Doggy, and now I walk a lovely Cocker Spaniel quite regularly. And it was fine. Like, I joined the society, I tried it, decided it wasn't for me, and then I found what I could do instead. And it was just seems quite straightforward for a lot of people, but it was that problem solving that can be a bit difficult. And at the beginning of the autumn term, I went to a few sports taster sessions. I'm awful at sports, really bad, but I decided to join rowing and I absolutely loved it. Last month, we raised over £1,000 for a charity by completing a 24-hour rowing marathon. And we have regular social nights. Like this week's social night was a water sports related. So I wore a children's size Spider-Man towel poncho, which really did not fit over my head very well, but it was great. I was going around pretending to be Spider-Man. And back to clubbing. The first thing most people think about when they hear university is the nightlife, getting drunk, going out every other night. We're encouraged to believe that if your uni lifestyle isn't like this, then you didn't do it right. I realised before I went to uni that clubbing probably wasn't going to be for me. And it doesn't mean that I've done uni wrong, because I did it differently to other people. Because the only way of doing it wrong would be if I were to deliberately force myself into doing activities that I didn't enjoy just because it feels like the normal thing to do as a student. And I've tried clubbing a couple of times. Not always for me. I have to see how I am, make sure I'm getting home safe, and play it by ear really. But yeah, and the next challenge was learning. At school, I was really fortunate to have a lot of support, but I was a bit scared that when I went to uni that the support could just disappear and that I'd fall behind without the support of someone who knew me well enough to help me to catch up or remind me to stay on schedule. So one thing that was really scary was that the EHCP that I had was going to end when I went on to university. And another thing was lectures. The idea of sitting in a massive lecture hall and listening to someone go on for 2 hours just did not sound appealing at all, and it's not appealing. It's okay. And time management. My time management is either very good or it's absolutely shocking. There's no in between. So they were the things that I was quite concerned about. But how I overcame these challenges was I looked into disabled students allowance and I applied, and I was really fortunate that that I got a laptop through the allowance. I only had to contribute, I think it was £200 to. I got microphone and recording software, mentoring sessions, study skill sessions, and a great app called Brain in Hand that there's like a traffic light and you press how you're feeling, green, amber or red, like every hour. And if you're feeling red, so if you're feeling a bit rubbish, then it connects you to an advisor who can talk through problems with you, which is actually really helpful. So sometimes if I'm a bit nervous before a lecture, I can just press red and then it's someone to talk to before I go in. And then the study school sessions can help me to organise my time management, which is slowly improving. And the next part is health support. I was worried that in case I needed support with, for example, my mental health, that I would be away from my home GP, whom I got on really well with, and she knew me really well. Like, she's lovely. And I was worried that if I needed to use the counselling service at the uni, that the counsellors were likely to not have received autism training. So I was a bit scared that I'd be turned away, or they wouldn't understand me and I'd feel worse. And I was also quite worried about having a random meltdown or a shutdown at university and nobody being there to understand what was happening or how best to support me. But I tried to overcome these challenges by pre-registering with the GP surgery on campus, and I booked an appointment a few weeks into term so that I'd be familiar with the GP. I'd know what I'd have to do if I was feeling unwell, needed to make an appointment. I knew who my named GP was, and it just really reassured me so that I know the protocol really. And with other needs like sensory needs, my mum made sure that I got an emergency Id bracelet, which is, I think I have here. So it's just a little bracelet that has my name on the back, has that I have autism, and it has my mum's phone number, which I don't really like, but it's fine. But it's quite a nice bracelet. Like, if you didn't know it was an emergency ID, like, you don't really need to know, but it's quite pretty. It's not like bulky and horrid. So I don't mind wearing it. And it just makes my mum feel a bit happier that if anything were to happen, that she'd be contacted and someone would know that, well, like, I had autism and could get an idea of how to support me. And I also have Karma earbuds, which are these little, I don't have them to hand, but they're little earbuds that just go in your ear and they like filter the noise so that they're not bulky, they're really discreet, and I take them with me everywhere, just even in a lecture hall if I can't focus on the lecturer completely because I can hear paper rustling at the back of the hall, or I can hear someone chewing gum, then it just helps me to filter that noise out and concentrate on what I need to concentrate on. And they're great. And I also normally have a fidget toy with me, like I have this one here, which was given to me by one of my old clin psychs when I left CAMS, and it's great. It's a little bike chain, and I've actually found them to be great conversation starters. So someone sees me fiddling and they're like, oh, what's that? And I wouldn't have actually thought to talk to them, and then I tell them what it is, and then they end up wanting it and using it more than I do. I'm like, okay, cool. And we get to talking, and it just makes me feel a bit more comfortable, really. And then I just have a few slides of transition resources that are here. So there's some like how to support your child through change, and the University of Bath's 10 steps to create a neurodiverse, inclusive environment, which is aimed towards employers, but could also be helpful as a checklist for finding the right uni and seeing what support they can offer. And then there's also a transition guide to support the needs of pupils and their families moving between settings, and some personal stories, which are always quite nice. And then there's another slide of these, and it's just the National Autistic Society's page on transitions and what students with ASD want at college and university, which is quite a nice one as well. And the art of sharing information about your disability, because ultimately it's up to you whether you do share the information. So it's just detailing a bit more about that, and then a booklet on transition to uni. And that is me pretty much. So if anyone has any questions, please write them in the Q&A box.
Lovely, thank you, Niamh. That was really, really interesting. I know there's been a couple of comments in the chat. So someone else saying, I love Harry Potter and dogs as well, usually more than humans. I think it's great you use your interest to help you adjust your new life at uni. Talk's been so interesting and inspiring. Thank you. And
Thank
someone
you,
else,
Jackie.
I love your attitude. I was giggling a couple of times too. Got a good sense of humour. Can listen to you all day. Thank you for your tips and stories. Very useful. So
Thank
some
you,
nice
Andrea.
feedback there. I think there might be some questions, so I'll just wait for a minute or so. But there were some really useful tips and ideas in that. One thing I was wondering was, as you said, you were diagnosed at 17, which is quite late, obviously, in your school career anyway. So at that point, did you already have an idea of what autism was? Was it something you'd kind of identified that you might be autistic, or did you think of it something as quite separate, or you didn't know anything about autism?
No, I knew about autism, and I'd kind of suspected for a few years that I was autistic, and for like a good few years before that I realized I was a bit different, but I was a child, so I suppose I didn't really put the term autism into it. I just thought, okay, here's people, here's me, I'm a bit different. But yeah, I did realize that I had autism, so I think I was kind of the main person to push for the assessment, because I was under a team at the time, and I knew that my only chance to get an assessment would be then, where I'd have to wait like 3 years. So I pushed for it, and I got the assessment and found out that I was autistic.
Yeah,
so it was just that confirmation, really.
Yeah, that's really good that you were able to push for it yourself, or you had the energy to do that, because it's quite hard to have to advocate for yourself all the time as well. Louise, any questions in the chat?
There are a few that have come in, but I'm going to do my one first before I forget. I was intrigued about the sort of medical bracelet, and I was just thinking about if there was a time where an autistic person was maybe having a meltdown, what sort of recommendations do you think that people around them could do to help in that moment?
If you know their name, don't keep repeating their name. That is one of my pet hates. If someone keeps saying Niamh, 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 and I'm like, I can hear you, but I can also hear a car going behind me. I can hear this, I can hear that, and I don't need you to keep saying Niamh, Niamh, Niamh to me. Like, I know you're there. I just, sometimes it's like I don't want to be touched, but other times a hug can just be nice. You just have to, I think a lot of the time it's just sitting with the person so they can feel your presence. You don't necessarily have to be filling the silence, but it's just they know you're there, and that can, it's really simple, but it can be quite helpful. And obviously I have the bracelet, so that I think I had a meltdown on Sutton High Street once, and there was this guy who saw my bracelet, and he like really gently asked if he could look at it, and so I just put my arm out and he took it off, and he called my mum, and he was a really nice guy, and it was really helpful. He was really nice, and he started talking to me about his cats. And I was like, I'm not a cat person, but I like dogs. And it coaxed me out of it. And yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. That's really helpful. Okay, another question that's come in. It says, you mentioned that you were scared if a counsellor hadn't received autism training. What do you think mental health workers should know when working with autistic young people?
The first thing is realizing that everyone's different. And sorry, I've just seen a recent one that's come in, but yeah, it sounds really simple, but once you realize that, then it really helps. And as a young person, you can feel that they know you're not like, I don't know, their cousin that's autistic, or you're not like this other person that they had in the past, and they're not just grouping us all together, because once someone does that, it's a bit not quite demeaning, but it's not helpful. And I am forgotten the question.
I think you've answered that one. Thank you. Okay, the next one is someone said, great presentation, so much useful information and great to hear your personal experience. What would you say was the most helpful thing that supported you before you went to university and also once you arrived?
Without saying my mum, most helpful thing that supported me before I went, I think for me, trying to plan massively beforehand really helped. But at the same time, I like to pretend it wasn't happening. So about 3 weeks before I went, my mom was like, yeah, Niamh, you're going, it's 3 weeks today. And I'm like, why are you telling me this? And completely freaked out. But she quite enjoyed doing that. But yeah, preparation was really helpful. And my school was great in that they helped me to prepare. And once I arrived, that is a tricky one. I can't remember. I suppose really just trying to get stuck in, because I was a bit scared about like getting absorbed into uni culture, but then I was like, damn it, gonna do it anyway. So I went to Freshers' Fair and tried to join as many things as possible. And yeah, that was probably it.
Great, thank you. Next question is, how were you able to get any HCP?
That's really complicated. I have other needs as well, which it's really individual process, and it depends what support you actually need or your child needs as to whether you can get it. That's probably the best I can give to that, and good luck.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, another one that's come in says, your comments at the beginning about people saying you don't look autistic, it's my daughter's most frustrating comment. What do you say back to people if they say that?
How I just want to say, well, you don't look neurotypical. I normally come up with a quip. I can be quite sarcastic. I don't always understand other people's sarcasm, but I am quite sarcastic. So I normally say something that they probably won't appreciate, but hopefully it means that they won't say it again. But yeah, I'd say probably just tell your daughter it's really annoying. I know, I understand. But hopefully with acceptance, people will grow to realise, and we just have to educate them. And that's the best I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. And then there's another comment in the Q&A, but it says, thank you for sharing the tips on ear filters, your bracelet, the apps you use. So good to think about all of the resources and tools that are available to help.
Thanks, Helen.
I think that's all the questions in that bit. There's a few other comments I think that have come in. I don't know if you've seen. Someone said, I had no idea all those fantastic support options were available at universities. Really great talk. I like the word acceptance. It seems that with awareness, people try to still fit you into a neurotypical world and think they're being helpful. Yeah, and that's those ones.
Great, thank you. I really liked as well when you mentioned about the support that your secondary school gave you. How nice effect, by the way.
Thank you. I spent a lot of time with the animations.
I'm sure you can get drawn into animations, can't you?
That's too much fun.
Yeah, when you said that I can't remember who it was, but somebody in your school that you had a cup of tea with, and it was kind of like, that's the end of school now, and that's moving on to the next thing, and how that was just kind of like almost at the end of the chapter.
Yeah, it was really nice of him to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my head of year.
Right. Yeah. And it's just nice that those quite small things, actually, it doesn't take much time, but it just helps to kind of process that change for you. Great. Well, thank you very much. I'm sure that if your mum is watching, that she's very proud and liked all the little comments. Thank you. That was really interesting, because over the day we've had lots of different insights for different ages and different kind of pathways. So it's really useful to hear about your experiences at university, and good luck with your studies. It sounds like they're all it's going well. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to share with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.